Hello and very welcome to my podcast number 9 in English. Today is the 5th of July 2019, and in today's podcast I want to talk about my new design, which is now published and up on Ravelry and on my website. I wanted to talk a little bit about the topic on my latest newsletter and how it ties into my new work in progress that I'm going to share with you. And at the end, I just want to say a few words about Ravelry and the recent policy change there and what I think about that. But first, of course, I need to introduce myself. I'm Annette Petavy, if you haven't been on my YouTube channel or in contact with me before. I'm a Swedish-born crochet and sometimes knit designer. I also teach both crochet and knitting here in France. And I have a website, which is annettepetavy.com. You will find the link below, of course. And on this website, I sell yarns, I sell my patterns, and I also sell some patterns of by other independent designers that I represent. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram under my complete name, Annette Petavy. I also have a blog in English on my website. It's englishblog.annettepetavy.com. And you can subscribe to my monthly newsletter, which, well, it's a monthly newsletter. It will only come out once this summer. I do one single issue for July and August because it's vacation time. And in this newsletter, you can, of course, find news about what I'm doing and what's happening, and almost every time also a crochet tutorial. And if you already know me, and of course then you already know about this, I just want to say thank you for coming back. Very nice. So I'm going to say this at the end too, but if you enjoyed today's video, don't hesitate to subscribe, because otherwise you will not see it in your YouTube feed. And you can also click the little bell to get notified whenever I put out a new video. So it's the 5th of July, so if you're American, it's just the day after the 4th, I guess. But here in France, 5th of July is a very important date this year, because if you saw my previous podcast, I told you that my son was doing his baccalaureate, or bac, which means he was sitting for exams to validate his secondary studies, and today is reveal day, and yes, he managed. He validated everything, so he will be going to university next year, and we're very, very happy for him and for many of his friends who also succeeded, because as I said last time, this is kind of a rite of passage in French society, and of course it means that now you can continue on and you know, follow your way to be an adult and find a career that fulfills you, and continue studying specialized studies. So, yeah, I mean, everything after secondary level is more or less specialized, so you get rid of some school subjects that you did not enjoy, and you discover new ones. So it's a nice thing to have succeeded in that. Also, if you watched my last podcast, it was quite bit shorter than intended, and I'm very, very sorry about the brutal ending. I'm still quite new at this video thing, and well, there is some things I need to learn, some routines to have in place, like, for example, checking that everything has been recorded, because actually my webcam, I think it just shut off. I had said most of what I wanted to say, so I still put up the episode, but it was far too late for me to re-record. And since I strive to be a bit more regular in my posting of videos, well, I put it up as it is, as it was, and I hope today's video is going to be complete from end to finish, and at least if if it cuts up somewhere in the middle, then I will find out before it's too late and be able to record the part that didn't get into the webcam. So, what else? Currently, it's the Women's World Cup championships in football or soccer, if you like, and the final stages are played here in Lyon, the semifinals and the final. I'm very sad to report that Sweden lost in the semifinal against the Netherlands. Well, congratulations if you are from the Netherlands. I think it was a very good game. And I'm not a huge football fan, but I enjoy watching more, how to say, more decisive matches. I mean, it's the World Cup after all. And usually I do this with my husband and my son, who are very, very much into football and who have interesting commentary. Well, now it was only me because they were out and about. It was only me, my crochet hook, and the TV. But it was nice too, even if it didn't end as I would have hoped. So it has been a bit interesting in Lyon because my husband had problem with the car and he would have needed to rent a car, but there are no rental cars available. There are apparently no hotel rooms. Not a problem for us because we have a home here, but very hard to get tickets for the trains going in to and out from Lyon. So, well, it's a bit exceptional, but it's also a lot of fun. Also, last time I asked you to participate in my poll on online classes, and thank you very much to those who have done so. And if you didn't watch the last episode, or if you didn't take the poll, if you're interested, please feel free. I will put the link again below the video, and then I think I will close the poll. It has been very interesting. I've learned a lot about your expectations on online classes, and now I just have to see how it squares up with what I had the intention to put together. And then I will need some time to put the classes together, because very clearly before the end of this year it's going to be very difficult to fit in another project. But in 2020 I have cleared my calendar for this, and 2020 is coming up so fast. Don't you think so? Time really flies. It's already been 2 weeks since my last video, and I thought it was just like 3 days ago. It's a bit crazy. So let's get on to the real topics of this episode of the podcast. And the first one is my new design. It's this one. You saw it already last time, but it wasn't finished, it wasn't blocked, and it didn't have a name. In the end, I brainstormed with a few friends, and this stole for the summer is now called Marie-Galante. Marie-Galante? Well, I think you can pronounce that in English, can't you? Marie-Galante is a Caribbean island. It's part of Guadeloupe, which is Guadeloupe, perhaps in English. It's a French part of the Caribbean. And I wanted a name for this stole that spoke about the water, because I really feel that there is something wave-like with this stitch pattern. Well, of course, you can wear it in a multitude of ways. You can definitely wear it more or less like a scarf in this way, spreading it out more or less. Today I'm I put it on my shoulders because even if last week's heat wave is over, it's summer, we're in the southern part of France, it's warm, it's hot, that's the way it is. And in France, very few private homes have air conditioning, and ours hasn't. We have wooden shutters and fans and open windows in the nights. So a bit more about this design, because of course it's a chevron stitch. What can be more traditional in crochet than a chevron stitch? And of course it's a almost iconic crochet motif. And I started to work on chevrons because, or ripples, it's the same thing, because I was working on, for my newsletter, I was and I'm still working on the theme of color in crochet. I talked about stripes, and one thing that's very interesting in crochet is that it's so easy to transform stripes into more complex patterns, because you can play with increases and decreases, as in chevrons. You can play with stitch height. There are lots and lots of things to do and explore. So on the topic of chevrons, I had already thought about this, but I hadn't explored it yet. It was on the topic of increases and decreases in chevron patterns. Now, there are, of course, patterns out there with chevrons that have increases and decreases, but the ones I have seen so far have what I and Dora Orenstein, just 1 second, I'll talk about her book, and it's increases inside the stitch pattern, what Dora would call internal increases. And I wanted to see if I could increase at the beginning, at the end of the row, because if you look at this, I'm going to stop trying to show you while having it on my shoulders and show it like this. The chevrons are the same size throughout, but they travel diagonally over the stove. And this is an effect that you can only get if you increase on one side and decrease on the other side at the beginning and the end of the row. I mentioned Dora Orenstein. She has a new book out. I forgot to take it with me in front of the camera, so I will, no, this way. Over here, I will put a picture of it here. And in Dora's book, this is a wonderful book which is called Crochet Every Way. And it's so interesting. It's about increases and decreases in crochet stitch patterns. And I think you really should check it out. Dora has done wonderfully thorough work. And it's so interesting. So it's a quite recent book. I recently heard of it, and I received it. I bought it and received it this week, so I haven't had the time to explore it fully yet. But of course, I checked out what she had to say about chevrons. And in her chevron chapter, she calls them ripples, but it's the same. She has only what she calls internal increases, which is when you increase inside the chevron, so the chevron actually gets bigger. It's a very interesting way to increase in chevron and decrease in chevron patterns. You can get very interesting shapes. There are quite a few patterns out on the internet. I've seen them on Ravelry too, where you work like a star in a circle, and you have the same number of points of the star all around, but of course the size of each V in the chevron pattern gets bigger and bigger, because otherwise a circle worked from the center out wouldn't lie flat. This is something different, and this is something, honestly, I've never seen anyone else do this. So this is increases and decreases at the edges, which means, of course, that since the chevrons are a repeat over several stitches, and these stitches play different parts in achieving the chevron pattern, there are many different ways of increase and decreasing. It's not the same type of increase and decrease that you repeat on every row. Excuse me, I have to drink something. I said it's hot. It's really hot. So, I had worked on this in my newsletter, and very often when I do things for my newsletter, I get more ideas, but I don't always have the time to act on them immediately. And I had worked on increases and decreases, but actually they didn't exactly match. Because if you want to do something like this, so the borders, the edges are completely straight, I needed to have increases and decreases that matched, so they were done over the same number of rows for a given chevron stitch. So I had to go back and work a little bit more on that, and I solved it. I solved it in my way. I think there are many different ways of doing this, but not very many people have worked on it. As I said, I haven't seen this before. So I also put in some eyelets, you know, just simply skipping some stitches and replacing with a chain, just to lighten it up and also to make it even more interesting to crochet. So this is a 10-row repeat. It's repeated all along. I think it's 15 times. It says in the pattern how many times. I think it's 15 times. So it's like 150 rows in the stole. I find it's very interesting to actually execute this, because quite often I'm more interested in the thinking and less in the actual crocheting. But this one was really nice because the center, let's look here. The center is, of course, just the chevron pattern, and you very quickly get the hang of it. But then you have to pay a little bit attention at the beginning and at the end of each row. And of course, to know where you're going to put in your eyelets and where you're going to work a solid row. And so it's not total autopilot crocheting, but it's not so complicated that you cannot do it while on an airplane or in an airport, for example, because I spent quite some time in this kind of places when working on this one. I just have to put on my glasses to check my notes to see if I said everything I wanted to say about this. Yes, I think so. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the yarn. I choose to make this in a gradient yarn, and I choose, as I showed you last time, the wool yarn. You have some examples back there too, which is a cotton and acrylic blend that I sell in my webshop. It's the only yarn with acrylic in it in my webshop, but I think this is a very interesting yarn design-wise, so I wanted to use it anyhow. The shawl which is there is my pyramidal shawl, and it was the first one I designed in the wool yarn. But of course it's lovely to work it in wool. I have used, this is a lightish fingering cotton yarn. I've used a 3mm hook, and it's I think it's between the US C2 and D4. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everything is in the pattern. It's checked in the pattern. The 3mm hook doesn't have an exact correspondence in the US system for hook sizes, but of course you can experiment a bit if you happen to only have US crochet hooks. I think this can also be an interesting stash busting project. You can work in a lot of different colors in this one. Perhaps try to make a rainbow out of your leftovers in fingering weight yarn. You need a few meters, of course, of each color to make it show up, but it's It would be very interesting. I would very much like to see what you come up with. So the pattern is now on Ravelry and on my website, of course. So please feel free to check it out if you want to work what I think is a unique chevron stitch pattern. So that was my work in progress last time, which means I needed a new one. And I've started working on this. It's going to be a bag. And if you have followed my latest newsletters, you can see that this is a bag in mosaic crochet. And this is also one of these, I think it's a kind of the same type of project. It's repetitive, so you can, in some ways, I mean, I can definitely, I met up with a few girlfriends the other night, and we were chatting and knitting and crocheting, and no problem, you can be social and and work on this, but at the same time you have to pay attention because every row is different, and I really like that. It keeps my interest going. So this is, as you can see, it's a one row pattern, the one row technique in mosaic crochet, and it's working the round. So the question about joining in the round was, of course, on my mind. So I did a little research on the internet, and I thought about it, and I tried, and I found my technique, and then I did a little bit of research once again, and then I realized that I was not at all the only one who had found this technique, but it's the one I prefer right now. I will go to, sorry, wrong side again. I'm going to put in a picture here of the swatches I did for the newsletter, where you can see the join worked in a spiral, which is a very good idea for when you don't change colors, but not such a good idea when you stripe it. With the traditional crochet join, where you join with slip stitch and you work a chain before starting in single crochet again. This is all US terminology. This is the one I use most of the time. And the last of the three is with this specific way of joining. I will put the link to the newsletter in the description so you can follow the details, but I'm just going to show how it shows up on this one. So let's see if we can we have some auto photos, please, on this one. So the join is here. And of course here you can spot it because I use multicolored yarn, but suddenly it changes color at the join. But you can see that the stripes are perhaps not totally perfectly, but close to perfectly continuous. And that's something really nice, I think. So I plan on working on this during the summer. Well, I have a lot of projects for this summer, so I'm not sure it will be finished anytime soon. But this for crocheting in the car when you're not driving. Don't crochet and drive. This is going to be great. We will be off to Sweden, of course, and we go there by car. So there is a lot of time spent in the car, and good project for your car. So perhaps it will be finished sooner rather than later. Okay, I think this was more or less what I want to say about well, the topics that are make up the major part of this podcast normally. As you know, or not know, but if you don't know, I think you can find lots of sources on this online. at the end of June, there was a change in the Ravelry policy, an addition to the Ravelry policy on hate speech. And this has been a huge discussion in the knitting and crochet community. And I have, of course, lots of thought about this, like everyone. I thought a lot about what I was going to say about it, because I think it's a bit difficult not to talk about it. But I think I'm going to keep it quite brief. So if you need more information, please feel free to look for it. There is a statement on the Ravelry homepage with a link to a page where they explain it more thoroughly. And you can also find information in the large official Ravelry forums. This is a policy that prohibits support for the American President Donald Trump and his administration to be voiced on the Ravelry website. So it's not, you're not banned from the website if you are a Trump supporter, but you are asked not to express this support on this website. And this is because Ravelry is a website that encourages diversity and inclusivity. These are values that vocal Trump supporters on Ravelry have not shown a lot of respect for. There are lots of things to say about this, of course. I just like to sum it up and say that my stance on this is that I support Ravelry on this. You might wonder why I need to say something about it, but I am a Ravelry member. I am also a designer who sell my patterns on Ravelry. So if I would feel the slightest uncomfortable with this policy, I would, of course, remove my designs from Ravelry, but I feel I am very happy to support this new policy. To me, this is not about politics. This is about very fundamental values and the value of equality of all human beings is very important in my eyes. And I also think that inclusivity and diversity are not only a question of acceptance of people who might be different from me or from you or for anyone. It's the very basis for the evolution of our society, of our culture, of our knowledge. If we don't open up, if we don't welcome everyone with their knowledge, their skills, their human worth, well, we're not going anywhere. So I've explained a little bit more, especially in French, because the information is not very easily found in French. Most of the things I had to say about this I've said on Instagram. But I thought it was important just to mention it here too. You might think differently, and you have the right to think differently, of course. But I think that if you do not agree with these values and you feel very angry about this, well, you might not choose to continue watching my channel, and that would be a pity, but that was just the simple result of us not agreeing on this point. And to me, at the end, I don't see why you should reject someone else because of what they are, how they were born, where they were born, because of the color of their skin, their religion, their ethnicity, who they choose to love. But I think you can judge people on what they do. So, well, let's try to do some good. Let's try to do some crocheting and let's try to find out about other people who crochet, who might look different from us when we look at ourselves in the mirror, but are also avid crocheters and have lots of skills and interesting things to say about this craft that we love. I will be going on vacation. Now we're on a totally different topic. I will be going on my annual holiday vacation around the 20th of July. I hope to be able to post a video before. If that's not the case, well, then it will be when I come back. So if I don't have the time to get back to you before that, have a lovely, lovely summer. Find a nice project that you want to work on during your vacation, or if your staycation, if you're at home, or during breaks from your work, if you work all summer, or if you're in Australia and it's winter and you don't really feel concerned. If one of your summer projects is the stone Marie-Galante, I wouldn't mind, of course. You can find links to everything I've talked about below the video. And I wish you a wonderful summer. See you soon. Bye-bye. Oh yes, I forgot. I told you I need to work on this video thing. So if you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe. Click the bell to get notified of when I put a new video online, and thumbs up. That's always very nice because it helps other people who might be interested to find this podcast. Take care. Thank you.